Let's start with the first transformation steps within our Power Query Editor, so our ETL, so Extract, Transform, Load tool. And what we want to do is the following. So what can we do actually? Well, we have a lot of options up here. You've seen them before. So you know there is actually here in this home ribbon already a lot of options. So we can simply choose columns here, or go to a specific column. But here we can remove columns if we want to do this. So remove columns or remove other columns. This simply means if I select this and click on remove columns, here I get rid of this column. So, but as always, if I make some mistake, I could always go back, simply click on this X and we go back to the step. So we delete the last step we've done. And we could also, of course, remove other columns. Is logical. If I click on this, then all the other columns which I have not selected would be removed. Okay. And I have always the option to select more than one column and then do transformation steps. Okay. So then the same is true for keep rows and remove rows. So I can decide, okay, I want to remove some rows here, so I don't want to see all the rows in this table. And I could click on there and can say remove top rows. So in case I want to remove the first few rows or remove bottom few rows, I want to remove the last few rows. In case there are, for instance, a few empty values appear in your, if you haven't, for instance, if you haven't formatted this into a table and you extracted a whole sheet, then here would be an option to get rid of certain rows which you do not want to import in your data. Okay, so here you can clean up your data. This would be an option for that. We have the sort option here, of course. If I select only one, I could sort here. If I want to do this, I could split the column. This is something we'll do in a few seconds. I can group. So if I want to group, for instance, if I have certain values which repeat a few times, then I could group by those values. If I want to do this, I can replace values if I want to do this, and could also change type. So in this case, the type has been calculated or decided directly from Power BI. But for instance, if I take a look at our dates table, and I can see that here, obviously this is correct. But if I scroll down, or not down, but if I scroll to the right, and then I see here, for instance, for the financial year, it shows me ABC123. So obviously it has not decided what kind of data type this is. So here I changed the data type to text. Okay, because that's what it is. Okay. So what else can I do? Well, I have my customer data here and I have my salesperson data. And for instance, for the customer data, I want to split this column. So here I have surname as well as the name from the customer. And I want to split this column. So I can simply go here and simply say then split column. I find it here. But again, it's also in transform. If I select transform, I also see here the split column. Okay. So I can split the column here. I could say split column by delimiter or by number of characters. In this case, maybe, only maybe, I want to use this column later on for a unique identification, even though there also might be another Thomas Duncan, but the Thomas, so the name Thomas will be appear much more often. So what I could do is I could simply right click here, and then you can also find a lot of transformation steps and options you have here. But what I want to do is I want to duplicate the column. So I click on duplicate column, and now I have my copy up here, and this copy I want to split. Okay, so I'm selecting the column, it's already selected here, and I say split column, and now by delimiter, because my delimiter is the space, right? So in this case, I say I have a space, and here I'm supposing that for this case, I'm assuming that I have only one name here, then a space, and then the last name. So I want to split not at each occurrence, but only of the leftmost occurrence. Okay, so at the first space, split it, and everything after the first space R is the surname. Okay, that's what I'm supposing here. Yeah, you could also use this one, but for now, let me just use the leftmost delimiter. Okay, then I click on OK here, and you can see that I have extracted Thomas Duncan, so the Duncan from Thomas. And now what I could do is I could simply rename those columns, simply use a double click, or use a double click. You could also type in then here, this is the name, and this is the surname. Okay, surname. Okay, so I've named those. We have split this column here. And what else can we do? Well, we also have other options for transformation. Again, here you can find much more than alone with the home ribbon. We have here by the home ribbon, by the way, we have the first row as headers. This is very useful because sometimes your first entry dataset should be the headers, and if you want to promote them, you could simply use first row as headers, and then the first row would be the headers in your dataset. Okay. And in case, for instance, your headers only or first appear in the 7th row, then what you would do is, of course, you would use remove rows. You would remove the first 6 rows and then use promote headers to use it as the header here. Okay, you could also do that. But just in case, just that you see it, if I use promote headers right now, then you can see that this first entry, Thomas Duncan, is now my header, but this is something I don't want. So click on the X and I go back. Click on the X here and go back. So, okay. So that's it for that. And now let's do something else. Let us use here and get the day. So in case you would like, let's split this one as well. Here you can see we have the quarter, and so far in our dates table we don't have a quarter column, and maybe this is something we want to use. So what we could do is I could simply go in here and I will duplicate the column again because I do not want to get rid of this column. I want to keep this column. And now I'm using the split again. So split, but now by the number of characters, and I only have Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. So as far left as possible, 2. Okay. And I select this, and you can see that now I got my quarters in here and the year, but the year I don't need. I already have this column, so I remove this column and I rename this to quarter. Cool. Okay. Now, one more thing. What we also have is I could select this date column here. And what I could do is, if I go to transform, I have these date options here. And also some mathematical functions here, but I have this date option here. And what I could do is I could extract something. Okay. So for instance, I could extract the year, the start of the year, the end of the year, extract the month, start of the month, end of the month, day in the month, the name of the month. So I could use this a lot on this date field here. Okay. This is recognized as a date. As I said, it's a continuous date, so all the date values are in here. So from the 1st of January to the 31st of December 2017. So starting 15, ending 17, and I could use those options here, date and time options, to extract data from this. So for instance, I want to have the day. Okay, if I want to have the exact day, I could select day, and what you see is I converted this column. And this is of course something I don't want because I want to keep the date column. This is something which is essentially for my date table. So I need to get rid of this. And when I use those here, those functions to extract, for instance, the week, start of the week, the quarter, start of the quarter, and so on. So all these functions, you could just go through them. What I need to do is I need to duplicate this column again. So I need to right click, say duplicate the column, and now I have my column here. And this, now I could use this and could say, for instance, I want to have the day and extract the day, and then you have the date. Okay, this is something you can do. Could rename this, but remember, if you use those options here for the date, and by the way, if I select any other column there, here, on this here, it's not possible because it's not able to recognize this as a date. But if I want to use this date function, so date time column functions here, what I need to do is I need to duplicate this column. Okay, so don't use it on the column directly. Duplicate the column first. That's important because this is the most important column in this whole dates table with a continuous date range. Okay, so you do not want to get rid of this. You need to keep this. Okay, so these are some transformations we can do. Other transformations, if we go to, for instance, our location data, we see that, for instance, here I got type city, which is repeating itself the whole time, which is not really giving us actually no real information. So what I could do is I could get rid of it. So simply right click and say remove. So I remove this column, or you could also use the ribbon menu up here. So you find it here, remove columns. We already talked about this, okay? And whenever you made a mistake, so don't worry, you could always go back, simply click on this X symbol here, and you remove your last step. So what else is important? One more thing is Power BI tries to be really efficient. And this means the following. If I do the same step several times, then all of these steps are aggregated in one step in the applied steps. You've seen that I removed the city column, for instance, and now let's say I remove the latitude. Okay, I remove it, And you see the latitude is gone, but there's no new step. So this simply means that basically the second removal step, which is actually the same from the technique, it's also a removal step as removing the city, it was stored in the same step. And this might be a problem whenever you made a mistake. For instance, I want to keep the latitude because I want to have the latitude as well as the longitude for my card, for my map later on. Okay, so that's why I need to actually delete the last step, but now I could only delete all these steps. So if I deselect it or get rid of it, you can see that also my type, the city, is back. And because I do not want this, what I could do is actually first deleting the city step, like removing it, and then doing any other kind of transformation, and then deleting the latitude. For instance, I could say I want to convert this into a decimal number, and you can see it still is a decimal number. So basically, I didn't change anything, but this step appeared here. Okay, and if I say now I want to remove the latitude, remove, you can see that this remove of the latitude is another step. So it's not stored in the same step as removing the city. Because here we remove the city in this step, and here we remove the latitude. But since I did something in between, so changed actually the longitude or the data type of the longitude, basically I didn't change anything, but I said it is a decimal number, what it was before. It inserted this step, and now I have two steps. So I've separated the steps, and if I now say, okay, I made a mistake, I want my latitude back, I simply click on the X symbol, and I get my latitude back, but without getting the city back. Okay, the city column is gone, and this is what I want. So this is well, a neat trick you might use when you do this, because otherwise, especially if you delete a lot of columns and then you made a mistake and then you simply get rid of this step, this would be a pain. So you would have to do it all again. Or what you also could do, of course, is you go to the editor. So each of these steps are here, and this is basically a GUI, right? This is an interface for normal users, which we can work with. But in case you want to dive deeper into the code, you could go to the View section here and can go to Advanced Editor. And here you can see all these steps. So basically, this is the M code. So all these steps we are doing here with this menu, which we have here with the transform, the home, so all this ribbon menu we have, all these steps are basically recreated or done here in the M language in the advanced editor. And here you could also then change only the last step, or just change actually the code, and so you can get rid of, or you could get your data back without removing all the other steps. You could do this here as well, but I think this is the easier option, at least for most of us, right? Yeah, that's it for the transformation steps we want to do here. And yeah, that's it for this part of the video. So I'll see you in the next part. Till then.